Are we ready? I'm gonna do my wavy out. I'm gonna do my intro. I'm ready. I'm ready. Ha ha. What am I even saying? What is this? This is a spell. Okay. I'm all ready. I'm ready for it. Hello, welcome to a Talking About special. It's special because it's not a season or anything like that. It is a release. It's a release. Ooh, bad reflection. Ooh. And it is, look, everybody at home, I've done it. It looks sealed, but it's not sealed. It's just slightly ripped at the top. I'm Paul or P-Bal, and I'm joined by...
Hello, it's James.
And hello, it's Jason, and I've opened mine.
And hello, it's Ben.
Hey!
Yay!
Oh, I'm quite hurt because if it were a Dalek box set, you'd leave it shrink wrapped on the shelf until you were forced to get it signed.
But they are now open. My Dalek box sets are open.
I know, because they've been signed, and there's a big coffee cup mark on one of them. I didn't know if that was on the original artwork.
I knew that would happen.
The other one got a big crease. I didn't think that was so bad because I thought you could firm that out. Anyway, it's Abominable Snowmen, because I don't think you can tell. That's going to be my first point, actually, before we say anything positive. Steelbook, okay, so this is Abominable Snowmen, mid-shot of the TARDIS. This is Fury from the Deep, mid-shot of the TARDIS. This is the Web of Fear, mid-shot of the TARDIS. Galaxy 4, is this TARDIS? Oh, look, we've got a Drav in there. Seriously, what's that about? I thought these were meant to be really exciting, lovely bits of artwork on the front of the Steelbooks.
It's consistent.
I love a TARDIS.
Yeah, consistent.
I've also just dropped Galaxy 4. I'm like, the BBC Archives, I just dropped it. No. But in the nicest possible way, though, were I out and about, a casual shopper? I don't know if that's consistent or lacking in imagination. I don't know. Is that dynamic?
I was going to say, has anyone got the DVD version of it? Because apparently they've put the rating right on down the spine in the middle of the title, and many people are very unhappy about that.
That is enough to upset many a fan. That is, let me tell you.
It's the Abominable Snop Gun, it says down the side, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Awkward. So who wants to... Jason's wasn't exciting.
I was going to say, the beauty of having the tins as they are, though, there's plenty of room for signatures around the edges.
The sadness of the Abominable Snowmen is there's probably not very many people that can sign it, though.
2 cast members.
Just have to ask Frazer to do a really big one. Please, Frazer, really big signature across the front. Whereas, Galaxy 4, yeah, Peter Maureen and Lynn Ash, you've got to get all the stars on that one. Only if you come to a Phantom event. So who wants to start on Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen? There's 3 of you. That's triple the opinion power.
It's always a long point. I will go first. The other 2 are like, yeah, God, you go first, James. Yeah, I have to say, I know this is the last of the current run of the animations, because the funding has been pulled, and this is the last project that was being done for the moment. I actually think the animation in this one is probably my favourite animation out of all the ones that they've done. I think there's quite a lot I like about the animation in this one. There's less sort of, I know we've talked before about wavy arms, we've talked about some of the things that weren't quite there. I feel with this one there's a lot more right than there is wrong with it, and I enjoyed that, seeing the colour, and I've watched the black and white version now as well, so had a chance to have a look at that, and I actually quite like the colour version. Just before, I think I liked the black and white of some of the other ones, but I actually quite like the colour version, and I thought that the only thing which we will come on to talk about is the guy, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, Padmasambhava, Bavar?
No, even I can't even pronounce that.
See, there we go.
Who?
So I know a creative decision was made on the look of him, and there's very few stills. Although the documentary, some of the sort of archive material on with this release does explain a little bit more about the costume and how they put it together. But that I was a little bit perplexed by, and I know Gary gave an explanation about that and the BFI, but the rest of it I thought was really good.
Yeah. What do you like about this compared to the other animations then?
I just thought for me there was less faults that I found with it, because when we were watching some of the others, there were points where there was like wavy arms. There was one where I saw like 6 fingers, which seemed like there were 6 fingers. I felt that the animation was cleaner. It was better. I love there was some lovely little moments, like when the Yeti are just standing there and you just see a couple of the sort of wisps of hair moving in the wind and things like that. I just thought it was the scenes where they were on the hillside as well were beautiful, and there's that shot where he looks out and he sees the monastery, and I've seen the stills now as well, and so you can see how it matches up. I thought the sets as well inside the monastery with the statue, I thought it was really good.
You guys also like the animation this time around?
Well, I'm going to add to this. That in actual fact, yeah, I'm in agreement with James here. I think this is actually probably out of all of the animations that we've had so far, out of this current crop, I actually think this is by far one of the best. I don't know what there is about this one that differs it from the previous ones. I think some of the backgrounds and some of the sort of scenes, and particularly things like the Buddha inside inside the sort of monastery there. It's almost got a 3D kind of a feel to it, and I think for me, I felt that the characters were a little less jarring this time. They're animations, so they're always going to have a little bit of arm movement and a bit of, they're going to look slightly less natural than if we were watching the real thing. But this one felt like that had improved over the previous ones. I wasn't as distracted by it then, potentially. But for me, what this has done is it's brought to life, I mean, we've already reviewed the story, but this has brought the story to life a little bit more for me. I struggle with telesnaps. I've said this before a number of times, but I felt quite engrossed in the actual narrative of the story. And I think the animation has helped me to come through that. And maybe, I've rethought my position on the story from the previous time I reviewed it.
Interesting. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with the other two, actually. I did enjoy the animation. I thought it was quite atmospheric. It was nice to have a few shots done at night, and I think that really helped sort of sell the whole thing, that they were there over a period of time. You had a lot of the time you don't see sort of things at night, and I think that helped sell it quite well. Yeah, and again, the same sort of thing where you could see some background things. For example, the door which leads to Padmasambhava's chamber is done quite differently to the actual animation of the characters. You can see it's like I don't quite know how to describe it. It's sort of like it's a different shading, or it's a different type of animation even. So the same with the bed in the cell. So it's not like everything's sort of animated and it has a uniform look. It does. I think it provides a different contrast between the characters and the settings. So I think that works quite well as well. It wasn't maybe my favorite animation. I still think probably Eve of the Daleks was probably maybe a bit better than that. But I think they've definitely improved, apart from Web of Fear, of course. But less said about that, the better. But I think, yeah, they have. I didn't know. I mean, you guys have already all reviewed Snowmen as a story separately, but for me, I don't know. I found it a bit boring. I thought it sort of dragged a bit. I don't think that's a fault of the animation or anything. I think it's just the story. It just 6 episodes seem to go on quite a lot, and there's a lot of talking. Unlike earlier animation, where, say, back in the time when they did things like Reign of Terror, and obviously they would cut that up like a Daniel Craig Bond, you know, it'd be like this, and it's like 60s television doesn't work like that. Whereas here you can see they've clearly left the entire soundtrack in. So because of that, you do get a few moments where the characters sort of stand there and they sort of, you know, blink and sort of look around, and you hear maybe a creak or something. You don't really know what that's supposed to be. And I know that the animators said themselves they had to guess what some of this is, because telesnaps only cover a certain amount of the episode. And if nothing in the script details what's supposed to be happening, then you've probably got no idea what is happening. So they have to sort of second guess it. So yeah, so I suppose that was, you know, they did the best they can with that sort of thing. So yeah, but overall I enjoyed it as an actual animated product.
Right. I've got Paddington here as a demo here. Why did the Yeti go? Why are the Yeti so badly done in a 6-part story about the Yeti? Why would you not have made more time to make them look less like a cutout that's just coming closer but not really move? Or you get and they also quite merrily walk through solid objects at varied points. It's like this is a bit cheap and nasty. They've still got the Kako arms. I'm a little bit disappointed because I think season 5 has been shortchanged on the quality front here, because Macra and Evil are far superior to this. This feels like it's been done on the cheap, whether it has or hasn't. It's whatever. I didn't feel that it was actually. I didn't think it was great, to be honest with you. A little bit of a shame.
If you watch episode 2, because they've remastered and they've tidied that up, the Yeti kind of bounces down the slope. There's no sort of like stomping or walking. It literally looks like he's about to go over the top of them, the way that it sort of hopscotches down the hill. So I think for me, I mean, Evil of the Daleks, Ben was just saying, there's that wonderful sort of long shot when they go into the mansion through the door, and very beautiful in the scenery. But the actual characters aren't quite right. I think in this, the actual human characters are better. You know, I take your point that they've stuck to a very straightforward design for the Yeti, but then if you look at what the actual design was, it was pretty much just a guy in a bamboo frame with loads of rubber foam and what looked like car seat covers over him. So it's not.
That doesn't stand up as basically, and again, it's another point that I think sort of needs addressing, is that they've decided to completely redesign the cast as animated are not the cast as appear on screen. So if you're that worried about how the cast looked on screen, you could have done what you wanted with the Yeti to make them look as ferocious or as easy to animate as you wanted to. You don't have to say, this is the limitation of the costume that we had in the original. We've got to stringently stick to that, even if we don't think David Spencer from Sri Lanka is the right look for someone to be in a Tibet monastery. Do you know what I mean? I think there are certain decisions that obviously get made on these things, for right or for wrong. And I'd have to say, having read the notes in the Steelbook, I found that actually quite offensive to the production team. I don't think the production team set out with anything other than the best intentions to make a good quality drama. I don't think anyone was there going, we've got to stamp out diversity on television here, you know, half an hour before the black and white minstrel show comes on BBC One. I don't think that they were, in the context of 1967, actively sort of creating this sort of thing. And it's such 2022, and it's almost slightly unintelligent to take a 2022 perspective and hit a 1967 production team and say, look at them, they didn't do it like we do now. Well, no, it's a different era. And I don't know, in all honesty, is it as bad to take the production as was then and then do what they were doing with physical makeup as a drawing? Is that as bad? Because the intent wasn't to make anyone that, you know, there's no sort of, you know, yellow face or anything. There's no actual hardcore attempt at that. I mean, questionably, I know on the documentary about that some of the hats pulling people's eyes, and so, you know, it's up for debate. It's 1967. I'm not gonna stand on that hill and die for it. But what I'm saying is the upset at the drama of 1967 being mainly English, Welsh, whatever, you know, British cast affecting slightly otherworldly accents. Is that any worse than then taking those accents and drawing them as a cultural appropriation? Is that better or worse? I don't know if it is. Stun them into silence.
No, I mean, I've got to be honest. I don't know. Obviously we've only got the one episode, so it's you know, you can look at the one episode and go, obviously you can see quite clearly in the live episode what they've tried to do to sort of from a makeup perspective. But I think you can have a lot of artistic license, let's face it, with animation. And I get your point with they probably could have stretched the Yeti a little bit more or done something different with the Yeti, because actually, you know, there's plenty of other things that have been changed in the context of the animation here, because you've got almost like a clean sheet of paper here, haven't you, when you start a story like this? And it doesn't have to be terribly faithful. It has to follow the narrative, but it doesn't, you know, you can elaborate on it or make it look grander, as they did in Galaxy 4. Yes, I would say there is probably I would say it could be a mistake not to have at least made the characters look similar to the actors who played the parts. And I think there are things you could have done to have ignored the makeup choices of the day, but at least had a likeness of the character. So I don't disagree with that.
Everyone else is remaining tightly lipped. It's almost like there are friends in close places and nobody wants to get upset with this.
No, I personally, I think if you were recasting it with, let's say, for example, you were remaking it without the animation, if you were making it with actual people, you would not make those same decisions now. So I understand what you're saying, and I do get the point. But I think if you've got the opportunity with an animation, and like you say, you've got a blank page, you know what you need to do because you've got the audio and you've got the telesnaps, but that doesn't mean that you can't, you know, correct something or change something if you feel it, if it's more appropriate. And I guess that comes down to the production team and what they felt was appropriate.
But surely the appearance of the monks as a general thing, if you did a cartoon and an animation version of them, that's still not going to be, do you know what I mean? You're basically just enhancing what's there on screen. It doesn't make sense in my head that he's saying that they tried to do it with British actors on screen, and that's offensive. But then to completely reimagine how they looked to how you think it should have been is a really strange thing, because, you know, I don't look at a lot of the sort of thing and think, oh, this we definitely need it, and give one a scar as well. Kind of like that. What's that about? Is that not slightly effective? You have to have one with a scar because he'll have been battle weary, and it's just, I don't know. I just think it to me doesn't sit in a happy place to do that. And actually, I think it's actually more sensitively discussed in the documentary on the disc, and it's handled better in that context. So I applaud the way they talk about it on there.
It's interesting, actually. You mentioned about the character with the scar, because that's Ralph-Chan, and so they've made him, as you said, with a scar and like a sort of a glass eye or something almost, and it made him completely different. The interesting thing is Ralph-Chan is played by David Barron. Now, David Barron, as to how he looked in Abominable Snowmen, is also in Abominable Snowmen as a guard. So you can actually see two versions of David Barron in this animation. What he looked like in the actual story, and what they perceive him to look like in the animation. But in the as himself, they put him in the background as a guard. But you can see, because I was thinking that's what David Barron looks like. But now this is the other version of him. So it's almost is a bit weird. They've sort of put two versions of him in there. So yeah.
Still no Harold Pinter though.
No. No. Very strange.
It's a shame, because I kind of think with these things, you've got to either, there's got to be, I think you've got a straight choice. You either build what's there and just take it beyond, which is fine, which is why, to be honest with you, when we watched Macro Terror, we did it in color, and we did it, and it was different because it wasn't an honest recreation of what's on screen. That's fine, because why would you sort of limit yourself if you don't have to? But then, if you're somewhere not quite in between, if you're either not embellishing it or not being faithful, then I think you're just hitting both stools as you fall over, maybe.
Yeah, it is a tricky sort of line to cross, isn't it? Because you think, well, a lot of people would want a version of what it would look like back then, but then there's also the chance to change it for animation, but also to update it to current, to how it would be now. You know, you wouldn't do that now. I mean, that was the argument, that was that apparently back then there were a lot of actors of that sort of origin back then that they said they could have used and they didn't. I'm not too sure, because I always was under the impression that back then there weren't as many in equity that they could have used, and that's why they did tend to fall back on blacking up or doing things to alter the appearance of people. I'm not quite sure.
There's absolutely I mean, that's why, bless her, when we had Xenia Merton at one of her events, she was like, literally, she said, I made my money in the 60s by going from production to production, because they knew I wasn't quite English, but I could pass for anything within the TV world. I mean, it's another world. You literally wouldn't do it in 2022. But in 1967, if you're like, I need an Arabian princess, but Xenia's generally foreign, we'll have her in. And it's how it worked. But Quark and things, you'd have people it's just that world, it's that context, and it's coming at things from a totally different world. It's a pain thing, because I just think, well, you could say, well, Doctor Who in 26 years was always white male lead and generally a white female companion. Is that horrendous? Is it horrendous, or is that how television worked? You wouldn't do that now, but then we're not doing that now. But we're not asking to retcon that and reimagine how we did that. It's just, you've got to accept sometimes how things were, rather than trying to apologize for them or brush them up. Sometimes just celebrate your culture and just have how things were, and just be happy. Don't have the fight.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting actually, if the upcoming season 2 set, if they had animated the Crusade, would they have then removed the whole blacking up of actors there? Would they have tried to change their ethnicity and make them more what it would have been like in the Crusades, if they had animated, of course? But obviously, they didn't, and it's just telesnap. So I wonder if they would have then gone that next step. But
well, yeah, if you look at the example then that we talked about for this release, then quite possibly they would have done Ben.
But then you look at something like, say, The Wheel in Space with Peter Laird playing Chang. He isn't Chinese. He's doing a Chinese accent, and he's got his eyes taped up. So if you animated him as a Chinese person, is that then offensive? Because actually Peter Laird isn't Chinese. You're now reappropriating his fake Chinese accent with a cartoon version. Do you know, that's where the whole world starts to eat itself, because you can't change something that was made in 1967 to being made in 2020. You literally can't do it. It's done. It's history. That's how it is. It's just...
It is, but then this version goes forward. So this version is done in 2022.
But using a 1967 production, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's like doing a remix of a song. You've still got the heart, you've still got the lyrics, you've still got the melody, you've still got everything that made that. So you can jazz it, you can give it a thump to a beat,
you would animate in the sellotape at the side of the eyes then? That's what you're saying?
No, that's literally not what I'm saying, is it? So, I'm saying you could have versions of the characters as they appeared on screen, which would look like the characters as they appeared on screen, rather than deciding how you would like them to look in an ideal world as you perceive that Tibetan monastery would be. None of the Tibetan monks look like any of the people who, as they appeared on screen in 67. And in 67, they were all appearing as they viewed the Tibetan monastery would look. I'm not asking them to animate anything in a racially offensive way or to add on tape onto those. That's literally not what I'm saying.
Okay. And I think, obviously, I've said already, I think, there would have been nothing wrong with them using the actors' likenesses, because you're quite right, they wouldn't have gone to the nth degree and animated to that extent. That would never have ever been on the table. So it quite possibly is a missed opportunity that the actors' original likenesses have not been used in this instance.
I think watching this one, I genuinely, I do find the Abominable Snowmen, a bit like Ben said, it's a bit of a bore. It goes on way longer than it needs to go on for. Web of Fear's amazing, and they're hard to think anyway. I think this one would suit. I mean, it's not the one if you're piling the tins up, it's not the one I want back next. But I think this one would be so much better if we had the actual visuals. I think it would really help it. I mean, a lot of the performances, lots of the little business with Debs in the cell and stuff like that is so much in portrayal, which you can never get in these animations. So I don't think it'd be a classic. I think it would help it, but I don't think animation has helped this one in my estimation. It's still slow. It starts slow, gets slower, then stops, I think.
I mean, you do get the little bits of business. I think you're absolutely right. You're not going to get the sort of facial reactions and the kind of the nuanced performances that the three of them had. But you get those little bits of business, like the fact that Jamie's had an idea. Oh no, come away, Victoria. It's still well done as far as the animation's concerned. When we did this story originally, I said this wasn't a classic. And I'm still of the mind that it's not absolutely a pinnacle classic here. But following and watching it in 6 episodes, all in one go, in color, animated, it's just helped to bring the story to life a little bit more for me. And you do get it. It isn't fast paced. It's a slow burner of a story. And it starts off at a pace and it sort of just does this. It just sort of gently, it's not up and down, it's just gently, it comes to a conclusion and it gets to that conclusion at quite a gradual pace through the story. It's not the most boring 6-part story out there by any stretch, but I think there is a tension in there that mounts as you come through the story that for me personally is helped a little by the fact that I've got moving visuals in front of me. I'd love to have those 6 episodes back. I think we would reappraise the story in a similar way to Enemy of the World and Web of Fear. But the animation has certainly helped me to follow the story better. And that's just my own personal watching preferences. If I haven't got the actual film, at least I've got the animation now. And it is a story I would probably sit back down and watch again as an animated version of the story.
It's a bit weird at the end when, in the actual one, when the real Yeti appears, it's just an ordinary costume, but it's slightly whitened. Whereas this, we get a Scooby-Doo
Yes, you get a proper
Abominable
cartoon Yeti. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, why is it not just one of the other animations? Just why? Because that's what they did in the. It just seems a bit odd that someone's gone on the Scooby-Doo hard drive, having already stolen Padma Sambhava from Scooby-Doo. I mean, that's where that's come from, isn't it?
Mm.
Maybe they had the same USB stick and they're like, let's say you want an Abominable Snowman for the end. Yeah, it's great. Love that. That's great.
I did laugh at that bit. I gotta say, I found that bit quite amusing.
There was that, and the bit where the Yeti fell down the crack as well, which is just this random thing that happened.
Kind of needs Wolf Morris to do. I had got away with you with one of you pesky kids. Yeah. Well, anyway, extra-wise. Oh no, I suppose the other thing visually, I suppose we have episode 2 that is with us remastered to the sort of it's Christmas as the day is long, isn't it? I mean, I can remember having it on the Troughton, yes, where it was a bit sort of smeary in the cave. Now you can see everything, can't you?
It is beautifully restored, I have to say, and it does make you think, like Jason was just saying, if you had all of the episodes, how it would look, because it does look. I mean, it's not the most action-packed episode that there is, but you know, you've still got your Yeti claw coming out of the rocks and things like that. It does give you an idea of what everything looked like.
What it shows you in that episode, and I agree with you, James, it's beautifully restored, and the film inserts in particular are they're clean to within an inch of their lives. It's really, really beautiful. But what I think it does show you is how clever they were with the location filming, and we'll talk about that probably when we get to the extras. But they shot things in really clever angles, so it looks a lot bigger and a lot more imposing than it actually is. And I honestly feel that the decision for them to take film into Snowdonia made it it was a feature piece of television back then, for sure. And I think the director has a really good eye for angles and detail, and it comes up really clearly on that. But I think I agree. If we had more of those episodes, I feel that I think it would be quite a glorious piece to watch.
Don't forget he did Invasion of Time though, so I wouldn't swear to it unless he lost the knack.
The silver foil. I think, and you do get a glimpse of it in the home cinema. You know, the home sort of recording, because I found those really fascinating. They're only short, but they're sort of really. Pat Troughton is really playful in particular in Frazer's one, which is, again, it's only just like a few clips of them getting in the car and, you know, when they get there, but you get the sense of the landscape and where they were filming, and you get to see, you know, the Yeti bouncing down the hill again.
It offers a fascinating insight into what behind the scenes was, and we don't have too many of those. There are one or two. Obviously, there's the smugglers and a couple of other examples, but it really gives you a feel for what it was like, and you can see that there was a genuine family feel on the show at the time. And I think it comes across quite clearly in that footage. And it's a beautiful piece of footage. We're robbed of not having the episodes, but to have that 8mm footage is I think it's a glorious addition to this release.
It was a surprise to see some of the colour pictures from Debbie's books in grainy quality on the screen. I was like, if you'd have actually messaged us, we could have sent you a proper scan, to be honest with you. But hey.
I'm going to use my phrase here. That's rude.
It's true. It's true. I was like, they must have scanned that from a postcard or something. Why didn't they just ask for a proper resolution image? Anyway, Lise said, the thing which I found very bizarre missing, because before we go on to what is there, let's go what's not. Why aren't the film trims on there? Because you get the outtake with Debbie falling out of shot.
That's exactly what I thought. Yeah, because I thought that.
Oh no, Billy Hartnell's left us.
I think the time scoop's got him.
You're back.
Yep.
Am I not here? No? Hello? Hello?
Oh yeah, we can animate you. It's fine. I'll do the arms.
We'll make him look like Scooby-Doo's nemesis.
You say about the film trims?
Yeah, the film trims. It's a pity that, as you say, we don't. That was one omission. I thought, where are they? Because you do get little bits here and there from the extra, because there's a little bit more than what was used in the episode, and especially the bit where the Yeti is chasing Debbie and Frazer down the hillside, and they go run like that, and normally it cuts, but this time you sort of go thump 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 thump, right up towards the camera. You get a little bit more. So yeah, I don't know why. I don't even know who owns them, or if someone maybe didn't allow their use. I don't know. Who knows?
I just presume because of the remastering that they'd had them, because the film inserts on, because on the documentary and on the actual episode are so sharp. I presume that they'd had another go at transferring and remastering it. I don't know. It just seemed a really odd thing to me. I mean, it hasn't ended my world, but as the first outtake from, because you hear Deb do a little yelp, don't you? And then you say you hear the bounce of the Yeti going after her. It's just a bit of a shame because you know there's plenty of space on the disc for it, isn't there?
Mm.
So has anyone broached the commentaries?
No.
No. I've only listened to the commentary with on episode 2, on the Surviving episode 2, with Toby and I think it's Frazer and John Walker, I think his name is, the film cameraman, and that was really interesting actually. Yeah. But I haven't had a chance to listen to the all 6 commentaries on the episodes. But yeah, that was good though. It was interesting.
Jason's not saying anything now. He's like, I had a glass of wine and it went from colour to black and white.
Actually, you're probably not far wrong.
Jason watched them film it back in the 60s. So he's all over.
Rude.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a really difficult story because I was going to do our Who Talk ones. It's really difficult because there's literally not a lot of people around for it, and that sounds disrespectful because it's not entirely. It's literally not meant to be disrespectful. But you do have to go to your sort of point where you've got to be a bit more as creative. Is that the word? I don't know. Well, you've got to go. Who have we got? Well, okay, we've got the film, and it's great because they're all lovely and it's all new voices that are telling stories, and that's great. So yeah, I think Toby does a sterling job getting those through and 6 episodes of it, and also fair play. Well, 7 episodes, isn't it? Because you get 6 animated and
episode 2 remastered.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's aside from the little bits of cine film and stuff. I suppose the main thing is the documentary, isn't it? Chris's documentary.
And it's absolutely glorious. And I think there's just something about the way that Chris approaches these things, and the landscape absolutely helps this. There's no question of it. But he's approached it in a way that he gets the best out of the location that he's filming at, and it almost gives you that sort of feel that they've tried to, I mean, they almost remounted it in a way because they put the TARDIS on the hillside. And I love that reaction of Frazer when Toby brings him around the corner. And I genuinely believe that actually wasn't a setup. I think that was genuine surprise from Frazer's respect, that I don't think he knew that the box was there. But I think what they managed to do is they weave in the 8mm footage, they weave in archive footage as well. And what you manage to get, I think, is a really decent making of, and a really good narrative of the story and what went into the sort of making of it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a really well done documentary. It's really nice. It's very comprehensive. It's great that you get to see where a lot of the locations were. They sort of go around and Toby goes, oh, look, this is the rock where Jack Watling sort of appeared, and this is where his encampment was. And you can see how close it is as well to the road, and how a lot of shots were filmed very close together. And because you sort of think, I mean, I've never been, but Snowdonia, it looks like a massive place. So you think, God, how would you find all of these things? But it looks as if they were sort of all fairly close together. I mean, it would have made sense anyway for the film crew, rather than having to trudge all the way up. It's interesting though that Toby and Frazer decide not to go up to the cave entrance. Well, the cave entrance. Just in case of health and safety or whatever. But,
Toby certainly looks like he had a lot of fun on it as well, and I think he gets a lot out of the location, because again it's new to him, and we all know he loves picking up all these facts on Doctor Who.
When you cut back to the cine snaps, it looks so. It doesn't look like it's changed at all. Some of the shots where they go and they say, oh yeah. I think it's the entrance to the cave. They say is above the road. So they were saying about what good angle they would have got on it, and then they cut to the cine sort of snap, which showed when they were originally filming it, and it looks almost like they've done a black and white shot of the same location, 50 years later, 60, 70 years later. It's just like it has not changed.
I've got to say, it's not a place that I've ever visited, but it's one of those where they call it like they refer to it almost as this is the Oldbourne of the 60s to a degree, and I think it's probably not far wrong. And the documentary, I think, has certainly given me the impetus to say, actually, I ought to really go visit this at some point in the future. Probably do a cheeky trip to Port Myron at the same time, but. Go and actually see it for myself, because it's there. You don't have to pay. It's there. You can just go walk around. It's amazing to think that location hasn't changed that much over the years.
I'm not sure you'd hold a convention on the side of Snowdonia.
Can you imagine?
I can't believe as a 70-year-old Welshman that Jason's never been there.
I think that 7 is in the wrong place, most definitely.
You're 7 years old. Is that what you're trying to tell us? Bloody hell, you had a rough start to life.
There is no 7, as well. There isn't.
8.
I'm as complex as unit dating me, let me tell you.
Just as interesting as well.
Rude.
Yeah, no, I always say literally for anything, thank God for Sylvia James as well. I mean, she's lovely, and she's the absolute stalwart of all these things now, with the commentaries and the things like that. But I love when they're going through the photos and they've got the picture of her doing Pat's hair. She hates that picture because she's looking down, and she says it makes it look as if she's got a double chin. So I like her acting of going, that's a lovely photo. I hate that. Please don't get me to sign it again.
Is that where Fraser's talking about him having curlers in his hair? I think with the DVD itself, you've got the color version, you've got the black and white version, you've got the restored episode 2, you've got commentaries on all of those, you've got a telesnap reconstruction as well. I think recently we were reviewing something and we're like, why didn't they release it with the 45-minute episodes and the 25-minute episodes? But here you get multiple choices of how you want to sort of watch it, which I think is quite a lot there.
Going back to the documentary, for me, the story that made me it really stood out to me was the story of Debs and Reg Whitehead, the Yeti, taking her out to dinner and taking her to a dance, and that just made me chuckle so much. That was such a good story, but the way they've woven Debs in, I think, is nice. I'll tell you the other surprising thing for me is I didn't really know an awful lot about Jack Watling as an actor, and it was very interesting seeing the cleaned up print and see, obviously I've seen the episode a number of times, but there is that interesting piece around the fact that they talk about Jack and Debs being in the story together. And I think the contribution from Giles Watling is you can tell he's genuinely, he's looking at the pictures and there's genuine affection there, isn't there?
I think it actually that's I don't feel like the arbiter of doing it. I think that would have been a nice thing to have done as a documentary in itself, because we didn't get it on Web of Fear, and this was an opportunity. They could have done a Jack Watling documentary. I'm not saying it had to be 45 minutes, but something, because actually, I mean, I'm going to get on the limb. He's one of the early examples. He's not saying he's the earliest. He's a very early example of a big star name coming into the show. I mean, he was a big name for this. He wouldn't have done it if Debs hadn't have just said, "Come on." So it's just a little shame that actually, because having had both the Yeti sort of come out as a special edition Blu-ray, it wouldn't have been a huge leap to just do a little bit of a this is Jack Watling, because you can talk to Giles, you can talk to Nikki. There's enough people around, or the archive footage and stuff. I mean, he was a huge film star, so a little bit of a shame, I think.
Unless they do something like that for the Blu-ray box set.
You got to hurry up, though, haven't you? You got to hurry up with some of these chats. Just putting it out there.
I know.
Yeah, no, it is fun. Do you know, there's an odd sort of nostalgia watch, because it's a slightly strange thing, because I know when I was watching this, Dex was working, but you could hear the audience. It's very strange hearing Debs sometimes when and even more so on the extras when she's doing one of her anecdotes, and I'm fairly sure that she also does the Reg Whitehead for Tomb of the Cybermen. I think it's intermingled. She definitely had a date with him on one of them, but whether it was in Snowdonia, it's also quite similar to the story she does about going on the date with Mad Mike Smith, the helicopter. I do wonder. I love her earnest conviction when she tells them as well, because I mean, bless, we did it once, and Wendy was like, "That actually happened to me. She's now taken that story from me, and she's just telling it as her own." But in truth, you are asking people to talk about something that was nearly 60 years ago, and go, "Oh, do you remember when you turned up on the first day of filming?" So you've either got to go, "No, I actually don't. I've had 3 kids since and 2 divorces, and I just don't remember it." Or you go into, "Yeah, it was such an exciting thing when I turned up, and and I remember all this." So there is a sort of almost a theatrical nature, I suppose, to these things. I think especially so for the regulars. And again, it's not like I'm calling someone a liar, but I think there's an embellishment that if you have been telling convention stories about something since 1985 or whatever, you've got those set stories, haven't you? And you know your punchline's coming. But the interesting is, you don't get that if you get the film cameraman or the floor manager, because they've not talked about it before, so they haven't got that kind of theatre to it. Does that make sense? But you've got to have a mixture of both, haven't you? Because it would be a dry old thing if it was just kind of like it was difficult on the 3rd studio block because of this. You've got to have a little bit of the.
They probably start to blur into one another after you've been saying them for so many years. It's like, how do you keep it fresh? Whereas, like you say, someone who's not really had the opportunity to talk about these things before, it's a completely different perspective.
Well, it's like Frazer with he seems to mangle some of his stories. I mean, that the story about the walking along and, "Oh, Miss Watling, we found your knickers." That's sort of like a Web of Fear story, but it's also an Evil the Dalek story. "Oh, we found your handkerchief. Oh, whose handkerchief could this be?" And that's sort of, I think they all do it. And sometimes if they don't quite remember, they just think, "Oh, I just added in here." But it's only when you start to get it on all the releases, you think, "Hang on, which one did that actually occur in then?"
Helicopter's always is it the Invasion? Is it Fury? Is it Enemy of the World? It's definitely, it was every Doctor Who only had a helicopter. Which story did this happen on? It's all right. It happened on all of them. It's fine. We don't care. We love it still.
No, we love it. We love all the stories. It doesn't matter.
I was quite taken with the cath kits and wallpaper in the TARDIS. That was quite an unusual choice, wasn't it? I don't know who picked that as the interior. That was quite a revelation. No, it's a nice documentary. I thought, it's enjoyable, and it worked with everyone. You could get into it, and nice.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that they included the full length of the BSB bit with Mervyn Haseman, where you can play the Mervyn Haseman drinking game, and every time he says Padma Sambhavar, you'll be pissed by the end of the clip. Because he literally comes out. He says about 4 or 5 times. It's like that's all that's made up of that clip. It's just like, what?
Jason can't play that game because he's pissed at the start. What else does he do?
I can't even say Padma Samba Ba or whatever it is.
That's the one.
He has to have an
Did I just say
Alka-Seltzer
it?
every time he says it.
So anyway, I actually, to be honest, I would just have a drink and not say it. It would just be a sin.
There's a moment, isn't there, where he says about the names being not on the dominators, and John Edgar goes, "Ooh, interesting." Oh well, I think that might be it. I remember thinking, oh okay, but I mean, aside from what I'm saying here, is it would have been nice to put a Jack Watling and definitely the film trims. The film trims would have been quite. I imagine.
Yeah.
It's difficult to think what else you could have done, really, because the March of Time and all that, and
Yeah, well, it's quite lucky in a way that it has got quite a lot of stuff. The fact that they could make a documentary with a lot of the footage and the and clips and things like that, and the people they could have interviewed. I'm sure they can't do that for a lot of. I mean, God knows what's going to happen when they decide to do something, say, for the myth makers, and you've hardly got anyone.
Mo, Peter, and Francis, they'll be there all day long.
He'll be on the behind the sofa.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's going to be tricky with other stories. But Snowmen at least has a lot of bits and pieces, which a lot of other stories from that time don't have. So it's nice to have it all on there.
Do you think, and as we say, this is the last of the scheduled animations, do we think that at some point someone else will come back and start animating some of the other stories?
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Ben's doing it as we speak. That's why his connection keeps dipping out. He's uploading Celestial Toymaker Part 3. He's just deciding whether he puts the nursery rhyme in or not. He's like, oh.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one, won't it? When it comes to that.
Do you know what? The truth is, there's money in Doctor Who. Of course, they're going to do more. If they want to do releases, they want to do 3 variants and a box set. They're going to keep doing because it's money. It's Doctor Who. It keeps making money.
And to some respects, if you look at our poor old beleaguered season 3, when we get to that box set collection eventually, it's not going to be an epic box set collection if it is full of recons, which potentially it's going to be, because it's probably now, I think, if you think about what's been animated and what hasn't, it would probably be the worst affected box set now. So you almost feel like there's got to be a decision at some point that says pragmatically, you can't just put the box set out full of telesnaps. They'll have to do something at some point. So potentially maybe they might make some money available again in the future. But I think it would be a shame if we didn't have any more animations.
Don't you think with like a season, I mean, it is pie in the sky because it's so far. Season 3 would still be a bigger box set than like season 23 or 24, because there's still enough material, because it's such a long season. There's still enough material in it. It'd actually be quite a big box set. I think the mindset is obviously that there is a lot missing, but there's a lot existing as well. So I think, you wouldn't do it behind the sofa for myth makers if you hadn't got any footage. You wouldn't make them sit through a telesnapless reconstruction and just, oh, what's happening here? What's happening here? Is Vicky leaving? So you wouldn't do any of that sort of. But I mean, there's enough. There's Ark, there's gunfighters. There's War Machine. I think there's quite a bit of season 3 that if they did it, it wouldn't shame itself.
Do it as a win, lose or draw. Just someone with a flip chart going, guess what's happening in this scene?
I could only imagine Janet's reaction to the massacre.
See, now that's another drinking game, isn't it? Costume. I don't know. Anyway.
So long as they don't mention scripts, that's the main thing.
Yeah, Jason, did you like the script?
We unfairly stopped on Ben then. It should have been.
It did actually, which I thought was quite amusing. I have no comment to make about the script in this instance.
You didn't when you mentioned it. You literally didn't have a comment to make on it when you did mention it. That was the point. You didn't have a comment to make.
And I am continuing with that trend, P-Bal. I'm continuing with that trend.
He's continuing with having no comment to make, which is very handy in a discussion video. So do we have any last wit and wisdom on, is this the right one? I can't tell. Is this the right one? I can't tell. Is this the right one? The one with the TARDIS on the front that cost 30 quid. Is it that one?
30 quid?
£30 for a steelbook. I'm writing that. I mean, it's cheaper if you steal it, but it's also criminal.
That's another type of
That's
steal.
why he does that thing with the seal, just in case he has to hand it back.
I watch it, push it back in, and then try and push it back together again. I even watched it.
Don't do that at home.
Yeah, well, we're not advocating crime here.
No.
Right.
Absolutely
So,
not.
is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? Who's going first? Any of you?
Okay, I'll go first. I'll go first because I don't know if we can go 0.5 up or down on this particular thumb, James. So we'll go for it and see what happens. I've spoken quite warmly about this as we've come through the review, because for me, having some moving images on the screen, whether it be animation or not, I think this has certainly helped to enhance this story for me a little bit. I think there's a really good set. I think it's a nice set of extras on here. It's like you said, it's missing some bits, but I love the documentary that Chris and the team have come up with. I think it's a really nice feature to run alongside this story. It has added a little bit more to the story for me. As I said, I think in hindsight, I scored this 7.5 the last time. I would certainly score it up on that if we were doing a score in this instance. However, TARDIS on the front of the box set to one side, this release for me is an absolute hit.
Yeah, I think I was very happy with it. I thought I was happy with the animation. The story itself isn't bad. Goes on a bit, but you can't help that, can you? The extras package is certainly very, very good. The documentary is one of the best I've seen. Although I haven't listened to the commentaries, there's obviously a lot to pick from there. So I'm sure they will be very entertaining. I was very happy overall with it. I think obviously the animation choices are sort of a bit unusual. The fact that they've changed some of the characters, and obviously we've spoken about that. And Padma Ambarbar now looks like Snoke from the new Star Wars films. That's what he resembles for me. It's very different choice of that. But for me, it is a hit.
I liked the animation. I thought the extras were good. The documentary is, as you say, is really nice. I like the home cinema stuff as well. The home camera stuff. That's really nice. Nice perspective on it. I think the sheer amount of it that is on here. So you've got the 3 versions of the commentary is good. And I also think that the newly restored episode 2 is beautiful. It's really gorgeous, and you just wish you had all the others, still on film, because it would have looked stunning. Maybe not change the story, but there's no recaps. It's really like the end of each episode, you go straight into the next one. There's some episodes you watch, it drags because you've got another 5 minutes of having to watch the previous episode, whereas this just stumbles on for 6 episodes with no recap. But yeah, I thought it was a hit.
Okay, So, Ben's giving it a double hit now. I'm trying to make up for my score.
Is he scoring again?
Yeah, do you know, I don't think the animation is particularly very good. I admire the dedication to putting the commentaries together for it, and I think the documentary is great. If I were a Doctor Who fan and I got to pay £30 or £20, I don't know. I don't know is the answer to that, because if you think about a season box that's £50, but I don't know. In your budgeting terms, is it worth it if you don't like the animations? Is it worth it's a difficult call for me, and I appreciate some people do like the animations, really don't. I don't mind if they're well done. I don't think this is well done. I would say, therefore, I put it in that category, and I'd say, when HMV have a sale in a month's time, swoop. I don't think your life's going to be shortened if you don't have it right now. Get it when it's got a discount. You can heat your house, have a light on, and watch it if you wait for the discount. It's true. They're all looking at me gone out. This is like a cost of living crisis. This is political discussion now.
We have our very own Martin Lewis,
which is now £5.
I am talking about that. Yeah,
you are our very own Martin Lewis here, definitely.
This is because I've got that mass appeal friendly face. You see, that's literally what it is, isn't it?
Well, at least you're not talking about putting tinfoil down the back of the radiator.
No, I'm not going to put tinfoil down. I'm going to put the steelbook down the back of the radiator, and that'll keep us warm. It'll heat it, and then you can just hold it in your arms. Oh, I feel warm because of the Abominable Snowmen.
There's that warm TARDIS feeling.
Or Fury from the Deep, or whichever one it is, with the TARDIS on the front. Anyway, I'm off to Tibet or Snowdonia. Just warn them that Jason's coming.
He'll be bouncing down the hill.
They'll be like, oh, that's what the animation for the Yeti was based on, Jason.
Oh, dear Lord.
Well, nobody walked like that. Anyway, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, as always.
Yeah. A pleasure, as always. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that was quite smooth. That actually did come back off Jason, didn't it? Quite impressed.
I know.
What are the chances?
I wouldn't want to be accused of. I wouldn't want to be accused of hogging the camera here in any way.
Of course not.
No, never.
James is super sensitive now. He's like, got that back. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, notify, comment, do all of that stuff, because it's all very exciting and it's all very important. Don't forget it. That's how for now.